Good evening, viewers. What are the top questions and a constant struggle of hundreds and thousands of students and the working professionals who are looking for the management programs? There is no denying that next 2 to 3 years are going to be challenging for anyone who is graduating from the college or looking for a job. The world has already lost tens of millions of jobs, and some of the industries such as the travel, hospitality, oil, gas, retail, entertainment, manufacturing, they have been hit extremely hard. The impact has been swift, and no one knows if all these jobs will ever come back. The lost jobs in these industries slowly start to have an impact on in other industries such as finance, advertising, technology, consumers, and small businesses. Even the small businesses who have lost their jobs or revenue will cut back on the expenses and will start delaying the loan payments, rents, and even filing for bankruptcies for that matter. The second leg of this downturn will be an impact on the financial services companies, marketing, PR companies, and technology companies. Even though yesterday Prime Minister Modi has infused about 20 lakh crores, 10% of GDP to tackle this problem for India, the problem still remains with respect to purview of the MBA degrees in the times to come. With me, there's an extremely experienced panel out here who are here to discuss about the purview of management degrees in these times to come. Within a round of introduction of Professor Ram Kumar Mishra, he's a senior professor and director at Institute of Public Enterprise. He's a graduate from National Management Program, SDA Bocconi, Milan. He has been a fellow of British Council and Commonwealth Secretariat. He has had research stints in London Business School. He has taught in the University of Bradford, United Kingdom, and University of Technology, Faculty of Economics, University of Slovenia. He's a member of the UN Task Force on Standards of Excellence in Public Administration and Education. He has been in several organizations including DFID, Deloitte, Adam Smith, ADB, and whatnot. He's been associated with the UNDP project on macroeconomics of poverty reduction carried by the RBI and Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Banking Research. A very warm welcome, Professor Mishra. Mr. Vishal Kurma, he's a CEO of Foxen School of Business, a very successful commercial leader with over 19 years of experience and consumer goods, retail, telecom space, and various roles across business management, sales and distribution, business strategy, brand management, go-to-marketing strategies, executive excellence. His experience straddles across global and Indian conglomerates catering to mass and premium product categories with proven track record of sustainable revenue growth, business turnaround while managing multi-channel play and driving organizational change. He's associated with brands like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Dabur, and many more. A very warm welcome, Mr. Kurma.
Thank you. Thanks, Dharanjot.
Professor Dhingra, she's a director at the Amity Global Business School. She's a seasoned professional with over 23 years of experience in teaching research and consultancy, both in India and abroad. She has been associated with some of the top MNCs in IT sector in the area of research and diversity and inclusion initiatives during a stay for 3 years in the USA prior to joining the Amity Group. She has almost 2 decades of association with the Amity Group, where she has been part of the leadership team and been on the advisory board of the curriculum design and delivery for the area of international business. A doctorate in the area of international business as well. She's presented with many research papers in many conferences. Welcome, Professor Dhingra.
Thank you.
Mr. Tarunanan, the chairman and the founder of Universal Business School, which he co-founded along with 2 outstanding management professionals backed with 60 global CEOs and business leaders. Prior to that, he served as a chairman and managing director at Thomson Reuters, South Asia. Prior to this, he was a co-founder and a global head of strategy at FX Market Space and led the business across Asia Pacific. He has had 24 years of experiences in financial services, entrepreneurship, education, including 4 years at Stancy and HSBC banks as well. A very warm welcome, Mr. Anand.
Thank you.
Dr. Asit Kumar Burma, the chairperson and professor at IFIM Business School. Dr. Asit contributes in the intersection of industry consulting, teaching, and research, and helps institutes to respond to Industry 4.0. He has over 30 years of industry and academic experience, having played senior leadership roles in CMC, Tech Mahindra, Hinduja Tech, Value Labs, etc. Dr. Asad helped industries reap the benefit of digital technology to create digital commerce, superior customer experiences, stakeholder engagements, and build the compelling brands across various industries domains. During his career, Dr. Asad has architectured the making of several successful corporate brands and received recognitions from many global industries. A very warm welcome, Dr. Asad Kumar Burma. So, yeah, over to the panelist for now. Uh, Dr. Dr. Ramkumar Mishra, let's start with you. Can we have your opening remarks on the topic at hand, please?
I think we are discussing a very, very important topic. This cuts across policy, education, the problems that are being faced nationally and internationally. And it is very crucial, I think, to discuss the various components of the problem so that we can know where we are heading to. And I think it's a great opportunity to be with this great panel. We have very senior and esteemed colleagues over here. We have Anand Saab, we have Professor Dhingra there, we have Asit ji, we have Kurma Saab, and of course, Collegedunia is in the lead. So let us look forward. And I'm sure that, we'll arrive at something which is very, very meaningful in the sense that we could understand the gist of that, and also our listeners who are viewing this very important webinar would also have some insight into the problems that we are going to discuss today. Thank you.
Moving over to Mr. Kurma. Mr. Kurma, can we have your opening remarks, please?
Thanks, Taranjot. It's been an absolute privilege to be part of this distinguished panel. And it's a great opportunity, I think, for all the students as well as the other policymakers to really see where the market trends, where the education space is going to move towards. I think it's going to be a very enlightening discussion. Thanks to Collegedunia for providing this platform to, let all the senior distinguished members come at one place and share their views for the benefit of the policymakers as well as for the students. Thank you. Looking forward to the session.
Great. Professor Dhingra, can we have your opening remarks, please?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be the part of this August panel and also to contribute and to learn from very eminent fellow panelists. I would say that yes, coronavirus pandemic is definitely disrupting business schools and MBA programs, not only in India, but globally. The full extent of its impact on the economy is certainly not known. So that is why so much of skepticism all around, specifically in the student community, who's more concerned about what's going to happen to their future, or whether, the MBA program is going to give them that competitive edge, or whether, MBA is losing its sheen or its charm. So it's a very pertinent topic of the webinar today, and I'm sure, the concerns are very valid, and listening to all the experts' opinion during the discussion, on the wider aspects on the topic would give some solace and ray of hope to all the stakeholders involved. Personally, if I speak about my view, I would say that definitely, the spread of the virus has actually, sent the whole world into crisis mode. But I would also say that, amongst the hardships and challenges, there's always an opportunity to modernize or reinvent our business models or innovate our processes, and an opportunity to harness the power of technology for greater good. So I'm looking forward to listening to the views of my eminent panelists, about the challenges and the other pertinent area of concern, and how, listening from everybody's experiences from their own organization, we are utilizing, different innovative models and using technology, to beat the challenges, and so that we all come out with flying colors.
Great. Mr. Anand, your perspective, and specifically on the impact of COVID-19 on the current programs, current management program, and the MBA degree. You can share.
Great. Thank you, Taranjot, for this wonderful opportunity, and great to be in this August company. So I think, this is the world has become flat. Normally, there are crises in different parts of the world. This is one crisis which has hit everybody with the same impact. So I think it's a level playing field. We are actually, there's no difference between an institution sitting in New York today or China. We are all on the same place. So I think the institutions and companies and governments, the biggest challenge today is to maintain continuity and minimize risk, and of course take care of their employees and students in that sense. So I think the important thing is, I always ask myself this question. I've had the privilege of, not so good privilege, but I worked in Wall Street during the 2008 crisis. And if you, just to give you a little memory run, that hit the crisis in November of 2008. So everybody who was in their jobs in 2009 had, there were thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of bankers, financial services industries were completely shut off. People were losing their jobs. People were, if they were having a job, there was no increments, there was no upside, no growth. And people who were there were always worried. There was this concern that maybe I'll get fired tomorrow. Maybe I'll get fired tomorrow. So I see that parallel today as well. We've just got into the crisis. It's 40 days. The impact's going to be 3 quarters. There's going to be a clear-cut flattening in terms of people realizing my career is not going anywhere, or many people have got fired. I was talking to this girl from the hospitality segment. She's like, I've worked for 3 years and I'm out of a job. And now I want to invest in myself. So I think that's the silver lining, that in such tough times, management programs, I think, will do well. I'm sorry, I'm being a contrarian. I think we've seen a spurt in people applying from the industry saying, either I've lost a job, or I'm sitting not doing anything, or I'm actually afraid of losing my job. This is the best time to invest in yourself, to boost your overall, learning, enhance your skills, get the knowledge, get the area. So I think I'm excited. Differentiation is going to be key. Just speaking from UBS, we've obviously done everything, like all my colleagues on this platform. Everything is gone online. And this is happening around the world. So internships are online, teaching is online, learning management systems are online. In fact, we've also done online examinations where parents have been our invigilators. So that's an interesting thing. Parents were the invigilators for our students because of our global partners. We had 2 cameras on the student, and it was an interesting experiment, went off, we pulled it off. So I think, student experience is going to be key in this new world. And I think it's also exciting because this world is thrown up, it's completely flexible economy is going to come about. As Dr. Dhingra was mentioning, new industries are going to come into play. Online delivery, telemedicine is going to take a leap faith. Digitization of every single business will have to be digitized. E-learning is here to stay. It's going to be robotics on steroids. So from whether it's autonomous vehicles to anything which is zero touch is going to move. Working from home is now a paradigm. I was talking to a travel agent. He's saying, now the Tata Group, which used to do a budget of 2,500 crores in travel, are saying maybe we can hit half of that, right? There's going to be health unicorns. We all know artificial intelligence is here to stay. So I think the world is moving into new models, new business models. And if students get their learning at this time, invest when they come out in 2012. So I also left Hong Kong to come to Bombay in 2009, and 2009 was a disaster, but 2010-11 were the best years of my career. So I would request every student, invest in your education. This is the time to go back to your school, invest, and you'll be ready when the economy takes off. Whether it's U, it's W, it's V is rare but possible. You're going to be there. I mean, China has opened Disneyland, right? So they've already had a V-shaped economy recovery. So why can't you? Thank you.
think that's a really wonderful opening remark here. We have about 160 on people here on Zoom and about 400 people on FB Live as well who are listening to us. As we grow, as we go on, I think many more people and many more students specifically will be joining in. Over to you, Mr. Asad Burma, that your opening thoughts and impact of COVID-19 on the management programs. Your opening thoughts, please.
So first of all, thank you so much, Collegedunia, for.
Sir, if you can be a little louder. If you can be a little louder.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for arranging this, and also it's a privilege to be in the midst of such distinguished panel members. And I'll be taking the cue from what Mr. Tarun Anand just shared. So, being a marketing person, I'm a little more optimistic. So when there are clouds, I look at the silver lining of the cloud. And I would also like to quote from this English, those historian, Thomas Fuller, who wrote, "The darkest hour is just before the dawn." So I feel this COVID-19 brings a different kind of opportunity before us. So we can't be doing the crystal gazing when this, this antidote would come, or when this COVID-19 will go and normal life will again resume. But some of the trend I would like to share with you. Going back, so we never had such a pandemic-driven economic disorder. We never had an economic disorder of this magnitude. So if I look at from the industry and economy perspective, then let's go back to this era of that Great Depression, 2933. During this time, we had a Great Depression. And what happened? Once the depression got over, so it took about 10 years or more than a decade to kind of come out of that depression, come out of that shock. But we saw the classical economic theory changed. The management theory changed. And you saw all Charlie Chaplin movie, The Modern Times. We saw it during that time, how the management theory is to move around input and output. But now the humanity, the humanness came into the center of the management education. Then again, 1973, we saw stagflation. We saw the depression in 87, 89. Then around 2000, 2002, we saw the dot-com bust. Okay, huge. But again, within a year or so, we could come out of the dot-com bust, or maybe about 2.5 years. Then 2007 and 9, we had another recession. It was a fall of all the financial institutes. But again, we came out of that within a year or so. So what we see that as such economic and this industry, this problem come, we are taking much less time to come out of that shock. We are getting, as a human race, we are getting more resilient, okay? So we have different policy frameworks in place. We have democracy, we have community services, we have technology, and we could come out of this depression and recession and dot-com bust everywhere. So I see that the time that we take to bounce back, to spring back, is getting shortened. So I'm very upbeat that will not take much time to come out of this COVID-19. The other perspective is that as the classical theory of economics and management changed post this Great Depression, we also saw that post that dot-com bust, then internet came, then from ERP we had extended enterprise. We saw that how world got flat and how the production system got decentralized. Similarly, 2008-9, around this time when the financial institutes fell, we saw a new business order, new business rule emerged. We saw the sharing economy. So as a human being, we also have a tendency to overestimate, overassess the short-term impact and underestimate the long-term impact. So today you are seeing all the PayPal, you are seeing all the Apple and Google. Where were they during the dot-com bust? Had you seen them, had you seen this company in 1999, 2000, you would not have invested in them. You could never think of what magnitude they have achieved today in 2020. So this is where I see that the world order is changing, the business is changing, economics is changing, and the new theory is emerging. as a result of that, we'll see the emergence of many then we can call it the next normal. I don't call it new normal. I call it next normal. What is the next normal? Next normal will be celebrating life, as Mr. Tarun very beautifully, talked about celebration of life. We'll see the liberal professional of the future. What kind of liberal professional of the future? Now what we see? Now we see that standard, they're passing out, they're doing engineering, they're getting into MBA, and they're doing their own living based on the paychecks. But tomorrow's, the liberal professional will be a poet becoming an analyst. You will see an artist specializing in, say, competition law. You will see a musician becoming a sales and marketing person. So this is the trend we are going to see. Or a chartered accountant is becoming a communication designer. Or a historian can even become a digital marketer. Or a naturalist can become a fintech professional. So this kind of emergence of liberal professional we are going to see, and that is going to be the scenario going forward. And accordingly, all the management schools, they need to see that how there can be blended learning and how the pedagogy, this adjusts to Industry 4.2, and not only pedagogy has to adjust to Industry 4.2, the curriculum, and even the curriculum is not enough. Even the faculty also needs to be Faculty 4.2. How to teach case online. So this itself has emerged as a new word. So 6 months before, I never heard that how to teach cases online. So Harvard is conducting the workshop. So we see that pedagogy 4.2, then learning 4.2, curricula 4.2, faculty 4.2, all these things will come. And then we'll see an emergence of liberal professional, and they all will be celebrating life. They will be learning for joy. Okay. So that's my initial observations.
Dr. Verma. Mr. Vishar Kurma, your perspective on the impact of COVID-19 on the managerial courses.
Yeah, so Taranjot, I would take the liberty of sharing my few slides with the entire audience here and try to cover it up maybe over the next 6 to 8 minutes. Okay, so I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so I will be talking about the impact of COVID on the higher education, and basically 4 parts is what we will be trying and covering in this presentation, where we talk about on the current management programs, how the impact is going to be. What are the institutions going to do to ensure the students are future ready? And then towards the global MBA degrees, how do we get more acceptance? Is it going to be something which is going to be the new norm, or is it going to be in demand, or there is something else which is there apart from the global MBA degrees? How do we make PGDM programs more relevant in the post-corona world is something which we will talk about. Just to take a little bit of a backseat in terms of understanding, first of all, that where the current situation is, what it is leading to. So on an overall world basis, we know it is almost close to 3 lakh people who have lost their lives to COVID-19. And most of the countries are in a lockdown, as we all know. And there are many of the masses and poor who are deeply impacted. Below poverty line people are almost like in a situation where they don't even have the money to support their staples. So industry boost is being done by the government. Like yesterday, PM Modi was there, having the address to all the citizens of the country, talking about what is the new stimulus which is going to be there. The stimulus to the extent of almost 10% is what has been talked about, which is huge, which is completely unprecedented. And I think in these kind of tough times, these kind of measures were pretty much necessary. Health services, of course, are under deep stress because India is looking at almost like, I was looking at one of the report a couple of days back, which was talking about by the end of May itself in India, maybe the number of positive cases will almost touch 3 lakh, which is a staggering number, which will put a lot of further stress on the health services. Having said that, I think the COVID-led global recession is pretty much at par with how the 2008 global recession was. And I think it's pertinent for us to understand, even from the students' point of view, to really see that what the impact of that recession was and what you can expect from this recession, which is going to be there. So the duration, if you see, almost like 6 quarters is what it took that point in time in 2008 for the global recession to come out, and we moved out of it. The global GDP decline was almost to the tune of about little over 5%. And the peak global unemployment rate was almost at about 10%. What to expect in today's scenario? I think if we try and understand the sectors which are going to be the potential losers and which are the ones which are going to be the potential gainers or the winners in this context, you would see that medical supplies or healthcare industry or the food processing industry, personal hygiene, e-commerce are the sectors which are going to be the sectors which will grow like anything. They are the ones which would be doing positive. They are the ones which will be growing at a staggering rate versus the other sectors. Many of the core sectors, you can well imagine, the automobile, construction, manufacturing, financial services, tourism, particularly hospitality industry, are the ones which would be at the losing side. So there would be winners, there would be a mix of losers also. And in the Indian context, if we see, GDP is going to grow at about little less than 1% as per the basis of various reports from Fitch, S&P, and others what we have seen. There is definitely a spike in unemployment rate which is happening. Liquidity and cash flow impact is pretty much there. I think if we take a leaf from our 2008 global recession, it pretty much looks like that it will take about a recovery will take about 4 to 6 quarters this time also, you know. So if that is the case, then I think as a student, the first question which should come to my mind is that, is 2020 the right time to enter the job market? And I think we need to answer that question very clearly for the benefit of the students. And this takes me to the next point, that in terms of, again, 2008 recession, the number of higher education colleges, if you see, immediately post the recession, it almost doubled if you see the numbers. And similarly, the student intake also. And I think many of you would probably agree that this is the time when the students actually should be looking at upskilling themselves, and hence the student intake in 2008, 2009 also was almost to the tune of about 120%. So hence, I think as a student, if I have to look at this data, and what I need to understand from here is that I need to have my own playbook ready for 2020. The playbook has to be basically on 2 scenarios. One is going to be towards whether I'm going to do my PG MBA program, or whether I should be looking at picking up a job. So if you're picking up an MBA and you take a decision that I would like to upskill myself, you can very well see that it is going to give you a lot of benefits in terms of this particular time which is there. So you would be having a domain expertise which you will be end up getting. You will be building upon your leadership skills and behavioral skills. There is no wastage of time which is going to be there, because you will be putting your entire time, effort, and money into something which is going to give you a great benefit over the next 40, 30 years of your career. It is going to give you and land you into some very lucrative job opportunities and profiles down the line once you finish off your MBA after 2 years. However, on the other side, if you really see, you may pick up a job today, but then guess what? The kind of risk of job cuts is going to be there. What kind of job profiles you will be able to get, you may not be very sure about. The packages are not going to be very exciting and enticing in today's context, because there are very limited opportunities which are there. So non-managerial jobs is something what you will end up doing. And the worst scenario would be that after the end of 2 years, you suddenly come to a conclusion that last 2 years, whatever job I was doing, it's not even really making sense, and it's not taking me where I really wanted to go in terms of my career. And hence I wasted my 2 years. So I think as a student, it is really critical for every student to ensure, to understand that what exactly is their game plan going to be. And they need to be very, very firm about it and understand that clearly. In terms of the impact on the current management programs, what you can see clearly is that 4 big trends I'm able to see when I look at the scenario, and I'm speaking to many experts in the education space. So one is clearly the digital theme and the emerging technology field is really coming up very, very well. It is the space to be in. There are a lot of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, data sciences, which is a great place to be in at this point in time. And this is the space which is going to boom, because any which ways the digital footprint is increasing during this lockdown. I was reading the report earlier when Nielsen released it a couple of months back, where it was talking that already the number of the smartphones have reached a level of more than 90% at the moment. And during this time, the internet usage also has been increasing quite a bit. So digital space is the space which is booming quite a bit. Second is the rise in the blended curriculum. There is a definite rise which is coming because of this digital interface which is being embraced by various institutions because of this lockdown. And there are blend of curriculums which are getting prepared, getting made, which is going to be a mix of classroom sessions as well as online delivery, virtual delivery. However, having said that, I would also like to mention here the other thing which many people have been talking about, but I think I would have a contrarian view to that, is that learning edge is going to continue from the classroom sessions. I don't think we are going to move away from the brick and mortar system at all. The learning is going to be the hub from the classrooms. Why? Because when it is going to be in front of the faculty, when it is going to be a session being conducted by the faculty, the attention spans are much better versus the virtual ones. You are able to ensure that your questions are taken care of right then. And much more than that, I think the social skills, which anyways, as Indians, if you see in the context of global exposure, the social skills are the skills which we are weak in. So you talk about any of those social skills, any of those cross-learning which can come from the peers, which is going to be completely absent if you only look at online delivery. So the virtual delivery is going to be there, but I think it is not going to go when it comes to brick and mortar model. And last, towards the thing, what I can see is, and clearly it is showing up in our numbers of applications also, there's quite a bit of a spike which is there in terms of our applications towards the study abroad category, which is shrinking. And rightfully so, the parents are also a little worried about it along with the students. They don't want to send their wards to foreign universities, because any which ways today, there are good quality institutions which are there in the country, even today. And the students are absolutely taking a step forward and trying to enroll into some of the high quality institutions. And that's where I think, in a nutshell, if you see on our overall impact, I don't think COVID-19 is going to deter any of the learning when it comes to the students. In terms of how to make, or how the institution is going to make the student future ready, I think the days of only the B school ranking working for you is not enough these days. It is going to be much more than that. You need to have plus of certain things beyond the B school ranking to really make sure that you guys are future ready as a student. So I think it is important for every student to really see if their B school is ticking all the right boxes. So in terms of the three big pillars, what we focus on at Voxen is knowledge, skills, and attitude. And towards that, the broad things which we work on very dedicatedly is one towards the applied learning, where live projects, group assignments, and everything is taken care of. And we give them very, very extensively to ensure that they are well prepared when they are going to get into the corporate world to start their professional life. The curriculum has to be designed in a very effective way. It has to be industry relevant curriculum. We have a global immersion program which is there, where you get the best of the both worlds. You get to understand the various business models which are working in the developed countries and how those are going to be relevant here in the country. You also get to understand the cultural and diversity, inclusion related things, which also develops the child in terms of students, in terms of their social skills and etc. So global immersion is again something which is the key. And last but not the least, we have a very unique concept called as a career coach. Every student has a dedicated career coach right from the starting, right from the day one when they get into the institute. The idea is that they should be able to bounce off their queries, bounce off their questions in terms of the streams they want to pick up, in terms of the roles they would like to go ahead with, in terms of their other issues which could be there, in terms of their functional or domain specific queries, in terms of their behavioral skills, whatever are required, where they need to be developed upon. So all of that is something which gets addressed through the career coach, and he would be one point of contact who would be ensuring that the student is given that right importance in terms of developing those skills. By the time the 2 years are done at the institute, he's pretty much up to the mark in terms of taking on the future career roles. Apart from that, skill development workshops is something which we dedicatedly want to work on.
Mr. Kurma, I'm really sorry. I'm just getting you out. Please, just a request to please.
Yeah, this is the last slide. I'm moving ahead with that.
Thank you.
So in terms of the MBA degrees, will the global MBA degrees be more acceptable? I think the key is going to be the institutes which are having top tier corporates coming in to them. There is a great industry connect which is there, where the big industry leaders are coming and sharing their talks and vision related things. The global exposure which the institutes are able to give. I think all of these put together is what a global MBA degree is all about, and that's exactly what any of the students should be looking at. And I think it's important that every institute, every student also sees that are they making the right choice towards that. So that's pretty much about it from my side as far as my views on the particular topic is.
Thanks, thanks, Mr. Kurma. I mean, a couple of good points that will be coming back specifically regarding the study abroad going down and the scope of global MBA. We'll be coming to that. Professor Dhingra, my question to you with respect to how the Indian management programs, how can they compete with the international programs? Any perspective regarding that, please?
Well, I would, before I answer the question, I would really like to just draw a perspective. Though we have been seeing that a lot of businesses, are suffering as the economic downturn and disruption carries on. And it may be a question of survival and sailing through the tough time. And this is not just, a scenario in India only, but majority of the institutions globally have been hit massively because of this coronavirus spread. I would just like to mention, a few days ago, there has been a tweet by the former UK Education Minister, Phil Beattie, where he says that they wish that, UK had very strong groups like, Amity to take over some of their institutions as they have not been able to, keep pace with the pandemic situation. So for, if I talk about, global education program, I guess they are now actually looking at more collaboration with their Indian counterparts. At Amity, we have already started receiving a lot of such proposals by majority of very good institutions, reputed institutions from UK and USA both. Because representing India's largest private education group, Amity, when the majority of higher education institutions globally are approaching us to look for ways for collaboration, it gives us an additional responsibility to set more better benchmarks. So I think because their economies are thriving on international students intake, and right now in this current scenario the students are not really willing to travel, or they don't want to pursue any education abroad. So what is happening, it's a basic marketing rule. When the customers do not come to you, you approach the customers. So rather I see a trend where the global institutions are trying to get into alliances with many reputed Indian universities and institutions, so that collaboratively, if they could just, provide a global management program, because this trend would continue for some time. Though I would say that this is definitely a temporary phase and things would get back.
I think there's a network problem at Professor Dhingra. Professor Mishra, considering the kind of experience you have, sir, what advice would you like to give to the students who are actually looking at you and seeing you and drawing inspiration from you, specifically with keeping the long-term perspective of COVID-19 in mind, the long-term effect of COVID-19 on the economy in mind?
See, just as we discussed, COVID-19 is not an exception. It's a continuing kind of phenomenon, and therefore I think any management student who comes to study management has to understand it very clearly that there will be many such episodes. Now, the question is that how the student should prepare himself or herself. One very important thing is that the student should think of improving his own quality of learning. What we find in Indian institutions, as we have just discussed, that quality of Indian institutions has to improve a lot. When you talk global, global content, then we don't have global, faculty in the institutes. So if a student has to come to study management, I think should look into, what kind of global exposure the faculty has. That's one. Number two, what is the faculty's own research? Because the student can go to internet, can go to, databases and can download every possible thing. But in case faculty has done his or her own research, then faculty can distinguish himself or herself from others. And you'll find that in most of the cases in the US, when a student chooses a university, he keeps in mind or she keeps in mind where to go. They just, try to find out who is teaching where. So one very important student is to see what kind of faculty is there in different kinds of institutions, what is their research base, what is their citations, how many papers they have published, and whether those papers, they are only academic papers, they are papers belonging to industry also. Have they brought any change in the functioning of the industry? One very important thing for any student who comes to study management is not, I think, buildings, is not the land. I think we have gone the wrong way in our country. Our regulators have taught us a wrong lesson. They have been talking, about the size of the campus, the buildings, the size of the campus, buildings, they just don't matter. They don't create good students. Good students are created by an environment where you can reflect. For instance, Shantiniketan was there. In Shantiniketan, we had Rabindranath Tagore, and we see that we never had those things which we claim today. So good canteen, good building, good attire, and high flown language is not going to help our students. They just then be taking away. And therefore, what we need today is for the students to see what kind of faculty is there in the institute, one thing, what the contribution, what is their connect with the industry, and whether the research has benefited, industry or not. Do they get sufficient time for reflection? One very important thing is that all our management institutes, because they are driven by regulator, they copy or they call themselves as stand-alone institutions. They say that, we are in touch, we have joint programs with the US. The problem with our programs is that we put too much of load. And when you put too much of load, then there is hardly any time for thinking. And what happens is then we just drive out, we just produce a student who doesn't have his own or who doesn't have her own thinking. So one very important thing is, you take the case of Australia now, we take the best universities we are talking. In the best universities, you don't have this kind of courses that we have in India. We want them to teach each and everything, and result is that the kind of produce we prepare, the kind of produce that that is an outturn, that doesn't help the industry. Student must go to a place where student can sit with teachers, can learn. I think there can be a dialogue. One can go to industry, one can reflect, and then one can think. One can create some potential for outside, so that he or she can be accessible to industry and he or she is ready for industry.
Thanks, Professor Sharma. Professor Mishra. Mr. Anand, my question to you with respect to the global MBA perspective, as in, do you see a rise in developing of students' mindset for global MBAs? Students who are focusing on study abroad, will they be considering global MBA as an option in these times?
Yeah, I think, GMAT ran a survey last year, GMAT, which runs the GMAT exam globally. And this is across every region, it was consistent that the one aspiration of every student was, like, top of the mind was being global. Global aspirations were top of the mind. Now, so that's a given. Now, digitalization, which is going to be accelerated, it was on a high path, but with this crisis to a different level, as I was mentioning earlier. So we are digital, we are global. Global itself thrives on this whole digital economy. Now, coming back to your question of global MBA per se. So there are two forms of global MBA. One is where you go abroad and do it. You go to UK, Canada, US. The other is you do a global curriculum in India where you possibly don't have to go abroad. You can go abroad. And then there are multiple variants of that. You can go abroad for 1 month. You can go abroad for 3 months. And this is not something where you go to do sightseeing or, get an exposure. This is where you actually study and get credits. So you do 4 credits, 12 credits. And then you also add an international internship as well. So I guess at this point, it's moot because countries are shut down their borders. So that's not going to happen, at least for a year from now, till things work out. But in the interim, you can still go for a global program delivered by global faculty in India without having to step outside your borders. And why is that important? Because the global, pedagogy is very application based. It's based on critical thinking. It's based on, for students to actually come out of the box. They actually, AICT chairman, Professor Dr. Saraswati, in every panel has been talking about Bloom's taxonomy. I love that. I'm so delighted to see AICT talking about Bloom's taxonomy. We had a program with our British partners. Bloom's taxonomy is the ABCD. What is that? It's about pushing students to focus on, being creative, being solution providing, which is the future. It's not about remembering and focusing on your memory. And that's what the global learning does. So we've had a phenomenal experience of working with global partners from every continent. And they've taught us how to push the envelope in terms of student creativity and learning.
Thanks, Mr. Anand. The polls are live. I mean, for the viewers, you can go and access the polls, and we would love to hear from you your perspective as well. A couple of questions that are coming up, and primarily in and around the gist of the questions remains the same. That is it good for them to invest 2 years of their lives and the money into an MBA right now? Mr. Burma, your thoughts on this? These are the kind of questions that we are getting in from the viewers as well. Is it useful for them to invest 2 years and the 2 years worth of money into the?
So again, what I said in my opening remarks, that post-COVID, the thrust would be on self to be happy. So going forward, the academic or the professional education will not be standalone professional education. This will be more of professional and liberal education. That means there is no open size fits all. There should be a process of discovery, and there should be bespoke learning. That means learning as you accommodate it. So according to your pace, you keep learning. So that is where comes the blended learning. And education should ultimately make you happy. So people would be investing in education to become happy, not just alone for earning a paycheck for the month. And all this education must move. That focus should be more on how to think and not what to think. Again, not just memorizing the facts, but how to connect the dots. And as Mr. Anand was also talking about, the thrust should be on problem solving and critical thinking skill. So few changes we are looking at is that definitely this is the time to invest in education, and this is the time. And by the time they come out after the graduation, the economy, I'm sure, as I said earlier, that the time we take to spring back, to normalcy or the economy to bounce back is getting shorter. Okay, so that way it will be really good. And when it comes to globalization, so in that globalization, one needs to thoughtfully work it out, because there are many international schools that are ready to partner with us. We are carefully going for the globalization, like, from IFIM, we have tied up with MacComs for the business analytics model. For Darden Business School, we have tied up for MarTech related applications. Again, for FinTech, we have gone to ESCP London. So this is how the module that the students should be choosing, they need to carefully, work it out. And the liberal component of the education will see a much, rise in that. So keeping that in mind, we just launched MBA 4.0, that will be operating from both this, this Bangalore culture, Bangalore center, where we'll be sharing all the professional part, and in our culture campus, they will be learning all the liberal elements. So that's where you will find many poets becoming, say, maybe business analyst, and maybe many chartered accountants. They will be studying the competition law. So this is the churn that we are going to see. And definitely this is the time to invest in education. And we feel that within 2 years, the Indian economy will be totally in a different shape. And just again, during this 1999 or 2000, nobody thought this Apple and Google of the world will reach what they have reached the status today in 2020. So we are overemphasizing on the short-term problem, and we are ignoring the long-term issue. So this is what my suggestion would be, that look at the future and look at the trend, how it is going to be, and carefully architect what should be your, the future component of your courseware. It will be, it will be a blended courseware. The mode of delivery will be blended, and also the professional liberal component that is also getting blended into the curriculum. That's what my take would be.
Thanks, Mr. Verma. Professor India, what is your perspective regarding students pursuing a specialized MBA versus students preferring a generalized degree in an MBA? Any perspective regarding that?
Right now, I would suggest that specialized MBA versus generalized MBA, the students should look at that particular kind of a course program where the first and second semesters are common to all the students, and the specializations begin in the second year. So which is more, which is a blend of both the general as well as the specialization that they can pursue in the second year. Why? Because they are required to understand different aspects of management, and as a business leader, they are supposed to make sense of the bigger picture, and they are required to take decisions, right, with a holistic framework in mind. So having a too specialized course program definitely would not really be a good idea in terms of acquiring the kind of a skill set which is required to be taking sound decisions. And anyhow, when we look at the today's time frame, and the students have to look at if they enroll themselves now and from a perspective of 2 years, they must understand that the organizations are not just looking at the business leaders who are good in terms of their academic content or business acumen, but they're also looking at how they can take they can make sense of a bigger picture, how they are comfortable and with ambiguous environment, their tolerance, and how can they take work pressure. So probably a generalized a course program which will give them an exposure about different facets of management in the first year, and then they can pick up, dependent upon the kind of their interest area and then skill set, they can opt for a specialization. That becomes a better choice, in my opinion. And anyhow, in the today's time, all the technology-led programs are going to be in great demand. So while we do offer, let's say, MBA in blockchain technology, or we offer MBA in artificial intelligence or business analytics, but we do equip them with a generalized business scenario so that they are well equipped with all the functions of management to begin with as a base.
Mr. Kurma, what is your thought on this? I mean, specialized MBA versus a generalized degree?
See, for me, how it looks like is, I was reading a research from Nielsen some time back, and there was this thing about the business analytics, artificial intelligence, data sciences as a field, which is really picking up quite well, and it's been received well. There have been emerging technologies where students are also looking a lot of traction. Okay, not only that, from a student perspective, if I really step into their shoes and think about what kind of an MBA I should be going for, there are many of the students who have a technical background are actually moving more keen towards our MBA or a PGDM course, which is in business analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So there is a demand which is picked up quite well versus last year, what I can see in our own numbers. And not only that, because of this research and the traction which is there, but also is in the terms of the placements which are happening in that particular field. So if you see the kind of companies, corporates who are coming for hiring the talent in that particular domain, inevitably, Taranjot, you would see that there is a spike of about 20 to 30% in the salaries more than the regular MBAs. So that is there. So that's something which is a hard fact today. And anybody who's having a technical background and who knows this fact definitely is moving towards a little bit of a specialized MBAs. But having said that, when you're comparing between the absolute numbers within the regular MBA or the specialized MBAs, obviously the regular MBA or the general MBA still is acing in terms of absolute numbers.
Some interesting perspective out there. Mr. Anand, your perspective on building entrepreneurship as a key element of an MBA, because you have been an entrepreneur yourself. Building the spirit of entrepreneurship in the MBA curriculum is all the more important as of now. Your thoughts on that?
So what we've done is that every person who does our Cardiff program has to do a new business project, which is 60 credits from a UK perspective, which is essentially detail. If you want the MBA degree, you should be able to have an actionable business plan, which is, it has to go through Turnitin. So there's no amount of, you can't do cut, copy, paste. And then it's ends with a viva where you have to defend your business plan. So we think that's a great, building of the blocks of entrepreneurship for each of those students. And what I see is, it doesn't mean entrepreneurship means you have to go out there and pick up some, your idea and create a business. I think, there's going to be that as well. And there's a lot of scope, and the government is incentivizing entrepreneurship. But I think whichever company you join, you should have the DNA of an entrepreneur, which is called the intrapreneur, right? And that's where you're going to be succeeding, because you're going to be coming up with ideas for the betterment of that company. And I've seen so many careers bloom by going to management saying, I have a new idea. You've seen some trends in the marketplace. You create an idea. And I was fortunate enough in my career to do one such thing and got $90 million funding to create one of the largest joint ventures in the foreign exchange market. So you can, and then you get an equity stake. So you are an employee, and suddenly you've transcended to becoming a intrapreneur, and you go out, you set the company, you go to Asia, you set up offices from scratch. So I would say it's a phenomenal skill set to think like an entrepreneur. And I always encourage all students that, think like the entrepreneur. If you think like the entrepreneur, then you will switch off the lights when you leave. And you will do everything that is required to be done, and not from this mindset that, no, this is not my job, this is not my job. And if you think like this is not my job, then you'll never get to the top position. So if you want to get to the top position, make sure that you put yourself across every aspect of learning, and then create your business value.
Great. Professor Mishra, your thoughts on this, sir? I mean, how to build entrepreneurship in the curriculum and the spirit of entrepreneurship?
Good, but I think, a few seconds, I think, to answer that question number one, why they should invest, in MBA programs. The answer is very simple. If you go through the rates of return, we call it ROI. What is the ROI? I think you bank deposits give you about 4 to 5%. You spend, suppose, say 10 lakhs. So what do you get? You get 50,000 over a year. If you invest money in gold, you get about 8 to 9%. So, you see the competitive earnings. But when you do an MBA program, I'm very sure that you end up something between 50 to 75,000. If you take an average, salary of 50,000 rupees per month also, you get something around 6 lakhs. So, there is a very decent, I think, earning when you do your MBA program. Besides that, you should invest in MBA program, because then you can decide about things. And this decision making is not there in other things. You just invest and you come out. But you don't play, I think, with the investment. So that's a very, very important thing. Now, coming to the entrepreneurship, I think that depends, I think, on a number of things. I think, it's a question which relates to sociology, anthropology, also background of the student. then the kind of infrastructure for investment that we have created within the country, and also the society where you put a premium, not only on success but also on failures. Because we find that in our country, I think we want to invest and we want every idea to mature, as early as possible and to give return. That doesn't happen, I think. In entrepreneurship, only such students will come who can wait for some time. They can start low, but they know that over a 5 or 10 year period, they will leave the person behind who is in a job. So what we can do is, I think one way, I think we can influence the minds, I think, of the students by bringing the best entrepreneurs to the classroom, and then we leave it to the student. Here, I think one thing which is very important is that students, they learn 70% from each other. All of us are here. We are representing different institutes. We must understand it very carefully. We may be university, we may be a great school, but our own contribution to the career of the student is very minimal. Research studies have been carried out, and what they point out is that institutions, they contribute only 10%. 70% students, they learn on their own. So understand, I think your and my job is to facilitate a culture where students can interact a lot, and there's a lot of time for them to interact and then grow. And then 70% comes from the students, 10% comes from the teachers, and 20% they pick up on their own, I think. So that's the thing, I think. And therefore, when we talk about entrepreneurship, let us, I think, discuss about very good cases like Steve Jobs. We can discuss here. We can discuss something about Mohandas Pai, I think, who has been a very, very great entrepreneur from where he was and from where he has come. Now, Netralaya, in Chennai, you see, I think these are the people. So entrepreneurship will only come when the students, we give them a feel that they can experiment with their ideas, and failure is failure is no stigma, and that with failures also they can succeed, and their success can bring them a very, very great bounty in the time to come. Indian schools, when we talk about Indian schools, we don't find much of the entrepreneurial culture being created. Yes, we talked about a school here, but I think not now, about 30 years back, we have Babson in US. Now, do we create a culture of Babson in India? You can, when you talk of UK, then there are 1 or 2 universities. Do we create that kind of culture? In our country, our boys, they just want to get out and they want to get a plum job, so that, can we then create a culture among the boys of taking risk? One, can we create a culture where they feel one thing, that there is no difference between a small job and a big job? Because in our question, in our society, we always believe that we need a very great, the moment we pass out, we want a good, a good cubicle, a good room, good facilities. Entrepreneurial life is a very difficult life. I think, we talked to, our colleague, I think, from Buxton, I think he was talking, I think it's not just a cake that you can put it in mouth. I think you have to work very hard, and certainly when you work hard, you have very good results. But I would say we have opened more and more schools, and these schools are only there for the students to seek jobs. We don't give them an entrepreneurial culture in the schools. That's the stigma which standalone institutes have, with good universities have, and Indian management schools as a whole, I think they suffer from this.
Thanks, Professor Mishra. This is an interesting question that is coming up even on a Facebook panel, is that the rising popularity of these online courses, online degree courses as well, with the likes of grade learning, upgrad, they are coming up. Mr. Kumu, my question, I'll start off with you this question, that do you see, since you said that the brick and mortar is here to stay, which we all know that it is here to stay, but do you see this as a, how would you weigh both the courses, studying in a brick and mortar versus an online mode of degree? How would you rate and how would you compare these courses, and even help the students out there to basically to help them compare the courses and make a right choice?
So look, Taranjot, where I come from is that as an institution, as any of the educational institutions across the country, have to embrace technology, digitalization. So that's what the future is. And we all are in some way or the other doing that. Even if we were a brick and mortar sort of a model we were working on, we still, due to the lockdown, went ahead with some bit of online classes to ensure that the delivery of the curriculum is done without any delays, right? So embracing of the digital platforms is something which is critical, which is for everyone. However, if we see that, is it going to be the digital one which is going to be replacing the brick and mortar? The answer is definitely no. But if you come to the certification courses which you are referring and what students may be talking about, I see a very clear segment where these short-term certification courses are going to stay and they are going to grow like anything. There is going to be a boom for those courses in today's context, particularly where we are in today in terms of COVID pandemic. There are a lot of people who would have lost their jobs and who would like to utilize their time, to upskill themselves with certain things. They can add on to their CV and resume and take up the next job as and when the opportunity comes for them. So the short-term courses, short-term certification courses are going to be the ones which are going to stay. These are all virtual ones in which the delivery is happening. Self-paced modules, virtual learning modules is how this delivery is happening. However, and these all pan from 3 months odd to up to 6 to 9 months duration courses, right? But if you see, certification courses has its own limitation also. Students also know this is only going to be a step up in terms of a certain skill set which they wanted to, upskill themselves on, and hence they will sign up for that particular course. But once you get into an MBA or once you get into a full-fledged PG program, it is not about one skill, it is a multi-skill development what you end up going through. And that degree or that diploma has a much bigger value than a certification course. So I think both these things are going to stay, and both of these are basically catering to different segments altogether. Certification courses are necessarily catering to that segment who was into a working executive, who was a working professional and wanted to upskill into one or two things in which he wanted to, and he took up that particular course. However, the other one is where you want to go for a full-fledged degree or a diploma to ensure that you are able to groom yourself for the corporate world, which is going to be for your next 30 years and 40 years of your entire career. So those two segments are very, very different. That's what my take is.
Thanks, Mr. Mr. Anand, what is your take on this? The online courses versus a full-time PGDM? This is because considering that it is becoming a little popular and getting into the mainstream as well.
Sure. So I think, there was an interesting survey done in the United States, and college students voted, and they are if you might say, the customer or the person undergoing the decision-making process. And they voted that 60% of why they go to colleges is because of the interaction, the college life, right? So just that exactly what Professor Ramkumar was saying, that that experience of peer learning, that experience of being on campus, and all these wonderful institutions are doing a lot to engage students in experiential learning projects. So I think that you cannot take away. Online is fantastic. I think it's great. It's a lifelong learning tool, as mentioned. It's like you need to learn, keep learning. When my students, all our students go to the next level, the industry is moving at such a pace that you're going to be extinct in 5 years or 3 years these days. So you've got to invest at that point in something else, some certification, some knowledge, some creation, so that you keep going. So whilst we might cater to the market for maybe a couple of years, these guys have a huge opportunity to do it for 40 years, right? These days, nobody retires at 60, at least I don't think so, although they wish for. So I think that's a very great area, and they're going to do well. There will be always crossovers that some of them, like Upgrad, are partnering with universities to deliver certain joint degree courses. So there'll always be that little bit of overlap, but I think both are models which are going to coexist, and actually one is going to leverage on the other. So I'm telling my students, why don't you use that platform for R or Python? right? In this time, they'll do a far better job than I can do sitting in a synchronous model, because they have mastered it. So I think it's a win-win, and we will partner with them.
I think it's time to wrap up. We can have the last comments or the closing remarks from our panelists. Starting with Professor Mishra, sir, your closing remarks on the topic and the suggestions for students.
So these are very interesting times, and we should have as many students as possible in our management institutes, because this is one course which keeps them ready, to face any challenges. This prepares them to take on any challenges. So if they want to have a full fun of life, they must come to management institutes, because as we have just talked, here we give you skills, here we give you liberal education, here we give you a plan for future, here we give you a time to reflect, here we give you a time to develop. So you must not wait for that. Please don't waste your time. This is very precious time. And as Kasparov told, I think in one of his books, he was champion in chess, he told that if you have to do nothing, then that's the best time to strategize. And these 2 years, please come and strategize for your future. These are golden years, as I think my very senior fellow panelists have just observed.
Thanks, Professor Mishra. Mr. Burma, your closing remarks and the suggestions for the students out there. Mr. Burma?
Hi. Okay. So I just listened to some of this conversation, and when it comes to general applications or specializations, so my suggestions to the students would be to be the T-shaped professional in today's world. T-shaped professional, it means, so that is the kind of the concept we are championing it at IFI. In the T-shaped professional, the top bar, this basically talks about the liberal education, talks about the core subjects, the practice subjects. In fact, the practice subjects is given 1/3 of the total credit, so that much of weightage. And you have the vertical bar. In that vertical bar, you develop the deep specialization. So it's a good, well-calibrated mix of horizontal, breadth of general understanding of all the subjects, your practice courses, and your liberal education, and the vertical bar of specialization. So that is how one can meet and face the uncertainties that lies ahead, and move on through this, this maze of uncertainty that is there in front of us post COVID-19. So that would be my suggestion. The T-shaped professional.
Thanks, Mr. Verma. Professor Dhingra, your closing remarks, ma'am, and your suggestions to the students.
Well, I would say that, the economic uplift has to happen in the near future, and we all will see an upsurge in demand for youngsters. So actually it is the right time, to invest in learning or relearning and maybe upskilling, because definitely in the times to come also, though there'll be a lot of, shift in the way we work or the way we live, we all have been witnessing that. So which gives the student community, a flavor of how digital platforms now work, and they are also they are tech savvy youngsters, the kind of generation that we deal with. So I'm sure it is much easier for them to adapt to newness or new forms of doing business. But this is definitely a great opportunity for them to make use of all digital platforms for upskilling specifically, like, my fellow colleagues already spoke about it, that, when we look at the online programs, suppose I want to make a career in digital marketing, or maybe I'm doing a specialization in digital marketing, but having an add-on certification, we're definitely going to add more value, to me. So once the market opens up and there's going to be, great demand for all those individuals who are going to be more tech savvy. So this is the right time to invest in your skill set and enhance and make use of all the opportunities that is being provided by your educational institutions. And if not, then there are so many other digital platforms where you can enroll and learn and be ready, for the future, which is definitely going to be bright. It's just a temporary phase. So nothing to worry about. Rather, have to have a positive mindset and keep your attitude towards learning open.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. Mr. Kurma, your closing remarks, sir, and the suggestions for the students.
Yeah, I think the world is pretty much waiting for you guys. My message to all the students is going to be that you should be taking it completely head on. This is not a time which is going to deter you in terms of your learning. Use this time to ensure that you upskill yourself. Put your time into good use, getting into a great institute so that you can get yourself ready for the corporate world. Get on to the three things which are very, very particularly pertinent for every student, which is about knowledge, attitude, and skills. All three of them have to be critically available with you, and you have you ensure that your arsenal is ready by the time you pass out. And obviously, by the time you will pass out, the entire economy would be booming at that point in time. Companies would be standing with their arms wide open for you. So there is no need to worry about it. Just go on, take a plunge into it, and go ahead, sign up for best of the colleges which are available in India. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Kurma. Mr. Anand, your closing remarks, please.
So no, I think it's, I agree with all the panelists, all perfect comments. I'll just say one point on the ROI bit. Remember, I did my MBA from SP Jain 25 years ago. I'm still getting the ROI every single day. So it's not what you get out. It's 25 years and I know I'll get it for the next 25 years if I'm alive. So the ROI is a long-term perspective. You need to, it's like it's not a one-day match or a 2020. It's not how you start the game, it's how you finish your career, right? So I'll leave that thought with you guys. There's never a better time to invest than now. So pick up your bags and get into the game.
Great, great to have you guys. And folks, that's all for from our side. And thanks for panelists for joining in today.
Okay, Tarun. I think thank you so much. I think for wonderful moderation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You have been really great.
Thank you, man.
Thank you,
Thank you, assist.
Yes, guys. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.